chosen ones. While most people sleep through their ordinary lives, you've been awakening to a truth that changes everything. Less than 3% of the population experiences the specific combination of restlessness, purpose, and divine discontent that marks the truly chosen. You are part of that rare 3%. The old world is collapsing faster than anyone imagined. The systems that kept humanity small and compliant are cracking at their foundations. Every news cycle, every social shift, every moment of chaos you witness is proof that the transformation has already begun. What they told you was permanent was always just an illusion. What they said was impossible is becoming your reality. Here's the twist most people will never understand. The same forces that tried to suppress your light, that made you feel different and isolated, were actually forging you into something unbreakable. Every rejection, every moment they tried to dim your brilliance, every time they called you too intense or too much, all of it was preparing you for this moment when their approval becomes irrelevant. By the end of this revelation, you'll understand why you never fit into their boxes, why their rules felt like prison bars, why you always knew something bigger was calling you. The universe itself has been preparing you to lead the exodus from their dying paradigm into the new earth that's already forming around us. Put it like this: while everyone else was learning to swim in the shallow end, you were being prepared for the deep ocean. They thought you were drowning. You were learning to breathe underwater. Deep down, you've always known something was different about you. That restlessness in your chest wasn't anxiety. That feeling of not belonging wasn't a flaw. That constant search for meaning wasn't weakness. It was your soul recognizing that you came here for something far beyond what this world was offering. They wanted you to be grateful for crumbs while you were designed to feast at the divine table. They demanded you shrink yourself to fit their comfort zones, while your energy was meant to expand beyond their comprehension. Every time you tried to conform, every time you dimmed your light to make others comfortable, you felt that inner rebellion, because your essence knew the truth. You weren't broken. The world around you was too small for what you carry inside. Think about every moment you felt like an outsider looking in. Every time their conversations felt hollow, every time their priorities seemed backwards, every time you wondered if there was something wrong with you for seeing through their games. There was nothing wrong with you. You were seeing clearly while they were living in a fog of conditioning and limitation. Your discomfort wasn't a sign you needed to change. It was a sign you were outgrowing the container they tried to trap you in. The very thing that made you question your place in their world was preparing you to create your own. You've been training for this your entire life without even knowing it. Every time you refused to accept their mediocrity as your ceiling, every time you chose truth over comfort, every time you walked away from relationships that demanded you be less than you are, you were preparing for the great departure that's happening now. The loneliness you felt wasn't because you were unlovable. It was because your frequency was searching for your true family. The confusion you experienced wasn't because you lacked direction. It was because their compass was pointing toward a destination that had nothing to do with your mission. Watch what's happening around you right now. The institutions they told you to respect are revealing their corruption in broad daylight. The leaders they said you should follow are showing their true faces. The systems they claimed were permanent are collapsing under the weight of their own lies. Everything they built on deception is falling apart because lies cannot survive in the light you're bringing to this world. This isn't happening to you. This is happening because of you. Your very presence on this planet has accelerated the timeline of truth. The frequency you carry is dissolving the veils they used to keep humanity in darkness. They're panicking because they can feel their control slipping away like sand through desperate fingers. You're witnessing the death throes of their empire of manipulation. Every desperate attempt they make to regain control only exposes them further. Every lie they tell unravels faster than they can spin new ones. The very energy of deception is becoming unstable in the presence of beings like you who carry authentic power. Their news cycles are more chaotic because truth is breaking through their narratives. Their social systems are fracturing because people are awakening to their own sovereignty. Their economic structures are failing because abundance can't be hoarded when consciousness expands beyond scarcity, thinking. Their political theater is becoming obviously scripted because minds that have tasted freedom can no longer stomach manipulation. You're not watching the end of the world. You're watching the end of their world. The world built on keeping you small, keeping you dependent, keeping you afraid. That world is dissolving so rapidly they can't keep up with damage control. Every day brings new revelations. Every week exposes more corruption. Every month makes their desperation more obvious. Onrotsu oming defetu. If this message hits your spirit, hype this video so more chosen ones like you can find it. This acceleration isn't random, it's responsive to your awakening. As more chosen ones like you step into your power, the frequency of truth intensifies. Their illusions can't maintain structural integrity in the presence of authentic spiritual power. You're not just witnessing this transformation, you're causing it. The most liberating moment in your journey was realizing who your real opponents were. Not random strangers, not distant villains, but often the very people who should have supported you, family members who mocked your dreams, friends who sabotaged your success, partners who demanded you dim your light for their comfort, mentors who tried to limit your potential to keep you under their control. They revealed themselves through their actions when your light began to shine brighter. When you started claiming your power, they couldn't hide their resentment anymore. When you refused to play small for their ego, their masks fell off. When you stopped seeking their approval, their true nature came into focus with startling clarity. The betrayals hurt because you expected better from people who claimed to love you. But here's what you understand now that you're free from their influence. They weren't betraying you, they were revealing who they always were. Their behavior toward you when you started rising was simply their authentic response to power they could never claim for themselves. They tried to convince you that your dreams were unrealistic because they had abandoned their own. They told you to be practical because they had settled for mediocrity. They warned you about reaching too high because they had accepted staying low. Every limitation they tried to impose on you was actually a confession of their own self-imposed prison. Watch them now as you continue to rise. The same people who told you to be humble are desperate for your attention. The ones who said you were too ambitious are trying to ride your coattails. The voices that warned you about thinking too highly of yourself are now scrambling to get close to your energy. Their complete reversal would be shocking if you didn't understand the predictable nature of their weakness. You don't need their apologies. You don't need their validation. You don't need their permission. Their opinion of you was never about you anyway. It was always about their own relationship with power, success, and possibility. They saw in you what they had given up in themselves. Your light reminded them of their own abandoned dreams. Your courage highlighted their own cowardice. The most pathetic part is watching them scramble now that your success is undeniable. They come crawling back with excuses. They try to rewrite history to make themselves look supportive. They attempt to take credit for your achievements. They want to be seen standing next to the light they once tried to extinguish. But you see right through their desperate performance. Something inside you always knew this day would come. That inner knowing that frustrated you for years because you couldn't prove it to anyone else. That sense of destiny that felt too big to speak out loud. That quiet confidence that you were meant for something extraordinary, even when your circumstances suggested otherwise. You suspected their rules were arbitrary. You sensed their limitations were artificial. You felt in your bones that the game was rigged, but not in the way they told you to fear. It was rigged in favor of authentic power. It was designed to elevate those who chose truth over comfort. It was structured to reward courage over compliance. Every time they told you to lower your expectations, something inside you rebelled. Every time they warned you about dreaming too big, your soul expanded anyway. Every time they explained why things were impossible, your inner knowing whispered that they were lying. You couldn't prove it then. You can see it clearly now. The evidence was always there in your experiences, the way opportunities appeared when you followed your intuition despite their advice, the way doors opened when you chose authenticity over approval, the way resources manifested when you trusted your path over their predictions. Your life was providing constant proof that their worldview was incomplete, but you doubted yourself because their conditioning was designed to make you question your inner compass. They needed you to believe their external authority was more reliable than your internal wisdom. They required your self-doubt to maintain their control. Your certainty threatened their entire system of influence. Now you can trust what you always knew. The game was never about who was smartest or most educated or most connected. It was about who was most willing to honor their authentic power, despite external pressure to conform. It was about who chose expansion over security. It was about who trusted the calling of their soul over the limitations of their circumstances. The signs were everywhere, if you knew how to read them. Synchronicities that guided you toward your purpose, intuitive hits that proved accurate despite contradicting conventional wisdom, dreams that showed you possibilities before they manifested in reality. Your entire life was one long confirmation that consciousness creates experience rather than being trapped by it. Your dreams were never fantasies, they were memories of your future trying to guide you toward your purpose. That vision of impact you carried since childhood wasn't wishful thinking, it was your soul showing you the mission you came here to complete. The reason you never felt satisfied with ordinary achievements is because you weren't designed for ordinary impact. Every skill you developed seemingly by accident was actually preparation. Every challenge you overcame that seemed unrelated was actually training. Every interest that captivated you despite having no practical application was actually curriculum for your true work. Your entire life has been unconscious preparation for conscious leadership in this transformation. You've been gathering tools without knowing what you were building, developing strength without knowing what you'd need to lift, cultivating wisdom without knowing what problems you'd need to solve. The universe has been preparing you for this moment when your individual purpose aligns with humanity's collective need for new leadership. The restlessness you felt in every job that didn't fulfill you was your calling, trying to redirect you toward your real work. The dissatisfaction you experienced in relationships that asked you to be less than you are was your purpose protecting you from settling beneath your potential. The loneliness you endured while searching for your tribe was your destiny, ensuring you'd be available when your true family appeared. Think about the moments when you felt most alive, when time disappeared because you were so aligned with your natural flow, when energy came from an inexhaustible source because you were plugged into your authentic power, when results exceeded your efforts because you were working in harmony with universal forces rather than against them. Those weren't glimpses of what might be possible, those were previews of who you really are when external limitations stop interfering with your natural expression. That feeling of rightness, of home, of this is what I was born for, wasn't temporary inspiration. It was recognition of your true nature, finally being allowed to emerge. The universe operates on perfect justice even when human systems fail. Every action creates equivalent reaction. Every energy sent out returns with matching intensity. Every choice generates consequences that align with natural law regardless of temporary appearances. What you're witnessing now is cosmic correction happening faster than ever before. Those who tried to suppress your light are experiencing the full force of their own darkness reflected back to them. The manipulation they used against you has turned inward, creating chaos in their own lives. The lies they told to keep you confused are now tangling them in webs of their own creation. The limitations they imposed on you have become the walls of their own prison. This isn't revenge, this is restoration, the natural order reasserting itself after being distorted by artificial systems of control. The universe is rebalancing scales that were weighted against authentic power for too long. Justice is being served not by human courts, but by the fundamental laws that govern energy and consciousness. Watch how rapidly their empires crumble when truth starts flowing freely. How quickly their influence evaporates when people stop feeding them attention and fear. How suddenly their wealth becomes worthless when consciousness evolves beyond materialism. How instantly their authority disappears when souls remember their own sovereignty. They built their power on humanity's ignorance of divine law. They maintained control by convincing people that justice was slow, uncertain, or non-existent. They thrived by keeping consciousness focused on scarcity, separation, and powerlessness. But awakened beings like you are dissolving those illusions simply by embodying their opposite. Divine justice isn't punishment, it's education. It's the universe teaching through experience what words couldn't communicate. It's consequence, serving as curriculum for those who refuse to learn through gentler methods. It's love expressing as correction. When beings choose paths that lead away from their highest good, you're not watching your enemies being destroyed. You're watching the aspects of consciousness that chose limitation, being transformed by exposure to unlimited truth. The same force that's elevating you is offering them opportunity to evolve. Whether they accept that opportunity or resist until their old patterns completely dissolve is their choice to make. The speed of this correction is unprecedented because the energy on this planet has reached a tipping point. What used to take lifetimes to balance is now happening in months or weeks. What once required multiple incarnations to resolve is being completed in single experiences. The acceleration of consciousness has compressed the timeline of karma into immediate feedback loops. Your ascension isn't happening in some distant spiritual realm. It's happening right here in physical reality as consciousness transforms matter itself. The energy you're embodying is literally restructuring the molecular foundation of your experience. Your thoughts are becoming things faster than ever before. Your intentions are manifesting with unprecedented speed and accuracy. This isn't metaphysical theory, this is observable reality for those who've learned to perceive beyond surface appearances. You're discovering that consciousness shapes form rather than being trapped by it. That energy precedes matter rather than emerging from it. That frequency determines experience rather than being determined by circumstances. The old world operated on the illusion of separation between mind and matter, spirit and flesh, inner and outer reality. You're living proof that these boundaries were always artificial. Your very existence demonstrates that consciousness is the fundamental force that organizes physical experience rather than being produced by it. Watch how your environment responds to your elevated frequency, how people treat you differently when you embody authentic power, how opportunities align with your intentions before you even take action, how resources appear to support purposes that serve your highest expression. Your external reality is reorganizing itself around your internal transformation. This is why their systems of control are failing. They were designed to manipulate beings who believed they were victims of circumstance, but conscious creators can't be controlled through fear because they understand their power to transform any situation. They can't be limited by scarcity because they know abundance flows from alignment rather than accumulation. You're becoming uncontrollable, not because you're rebellious, but because you're operating from a frequency that transcends their methods of influence. Fear-based manipulation doesn't work on love-based consciousness. Scarcity programming doesn't affect abundance-aligned beings. Separation tactics fail against unified awareness. The most remarkable change is how effortlessly things flow when you stop resisting your true nature. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. People appear who are perfectly aligned with your mission. Resources materialize exactly when needed. Solutions emerge from unexpected directions. It's like the universe itself is conspiring to support your success. The most profound realization is understanding how your personal transformation affects collective reality. You're not just changing your own life, you're literally altering the energetic structure of the world around you. Every person you interact with receives a transmission of your elevated frequency. Every space you enter becomes charged with your authentic power. This isn't ego speaking, this is recognition of how consciousness actually works. Individual awareness doesn't exist in isolation. Every being is connected through the same field of infinite intelligence. When one being awakens to their true nature, that awakening ripples through the entire network of consciousness, accelerating evolution for everyone ready to receive it. Top its space. You've become a walking portal to higher possibilities. To time, your presence alone challenges people to question their limitations. Your example demonstrates what becomes possible when someone chooses authenticity over approval. Your very existence proves that the game can be played by entirely different rules. Some people feel inspired around you without understanding why. Others feel uncomfortable because your light highlights areas where they've been living in darkness. A few become hostile because your freedom reminds them of their self-imposed chains. But everyone is affected because authentic power is impossible to ignore. The acceleration you're experiencing isn't just personal growth, it's dimensional shifting. You're learning to operate from frequencies that weren't accessible in the old paradigm. Your consciousness is expanding beyond the limitations that once defined human potential. You're becoming a bridge between what was and what's becoming. This is why you no longer resonate with old relationships, old entertainments, old ways of spending time. Your frequency has shifted beyond compatibility with anything that vibrates at the level of limitation, manipulation, or unconsciousness. You're naturally gravitating toward experiences, people, and opportunities that match your elevated state. The transformation isn't limited to your personal sphere. Your elevated consciousness is affecting global consciousness. Every authentic choice you make gives others permission to make similar choices. Every limitation you transcend proves that those limitations were always optional. Every moment you embody your true power demonstrates what becomes possible for humanity. The isolation ends now. Those profound connections you've always craved but never found in conventional relationships are finally manifesting. Your spiritual family is recognizing you across all previous barriers of geography, culture, age, and background. The same frequency that made you feel alien in the old world is now drawing your true tribe into your experience. These aren't relationships you have to work to maintain. They're connections that sustain themselves through natural resonance. Conversations flow effortlessly because you're speaking the same soul language. Understanding happens without explanation because you share the same frequency of perception. Support appears automatically because you're all invested in each other's highest expression. You recognize them instantly, even when meeting for the first time. There's a familiarity that transcends current circumstances, a sense of coming home to people you've always known but never met, a relief at finally finding others who see reality through similar clarity, a joy at discovering you're not alone in your mission to transform this world. Together, your collective power multiplies exponentially. What seemed impossible as an individual becomes inevitable as a unified force. The work that felt overwhelming in isolation becomes joyful collaboration. The vision that seemed too big for one person becomes the shared mission of an awakened community. They understand your purpose because they share similar callings. They celebrate your success because they know it advances the collective mission. They support your growth because they recognize that your expansion serves everyone's elevation. This is what relationship looks like when ego gives way to authentic spiritual connection. Your new reality operates on the understanding that everyone's success contributes to unlimited abundance. The old paradigm demanded you choose between personal fulfillment and service to others. Your emerging experience proves that authentic self-expression automatically serves the highest good of all. What's most beautiful about these connections is their effortless nature. There's no pretending, no performing, no editing yourself to be acceptable. You can show up completely authentic and be received with appreciation rather than judgment. You can express your full range of abilities without triggering insecurity or competition. You can share your deepest visions without fear of being misunderstood or diminished. The crown you're receiving isn't ceremonial. It's energetic recognition from the universe itself that you've completed your preparation and are ready for conscious leadership in this transformation. Every trial you survived, every limitation you transcended, every moment you chose truth over comfort has qualified you for this role in humanity's evolution. This coronation isn't happening in some distant future. It's happening right now as reality reorganizes itself around your elevated consciousness. Opportunities are aligning to support your expanded purpose. Resources are flowing to sustain your increased responsibility. People are naturally looking to you for guidance because they sense the authentic power you've developed through your journey. You're not becoming something new, you're finally being recognized for what you always were. The difference is that now you have the experience, wisdom and strength to handle the influence that comes with acknowledged spiritual authority. The universe withheld this recognition until you were prepared to use it responsibly. Leadership in the new earth isn't about dominating others. It's about embodying such authentic power that others are inspired to claim their own sovereignty. It's about creating such genuine freedom that people remember their own divine nature. It's about expressing such unlimited love that hearts naturally open to their own infinite capacity. Your crown carries the responsibility to serve as a bridge between worlds, to help others navigate the transition from limitation to freedom, to demonstrate through your example that the impossible is merely unexplored territory, to hold space for transformation that many still find terrifying because they don't understand their own power. The recognition you're receiving validates every moment you trusted your inner knowing over external opinion, every time you chose expansion over security, every instance you honored your truth despite pressure to conform. The universe is acknowledging that your choices have prepared you to lead others through the same transformation. This isn't about ego gratification or worldly status. This is about energy alignment with your true purpose. The crown represents your readiness to serve at the highest level of your capacity, to use your gifts not for personal aggrandizement, but for the elevation of consciousness itself, to stand as a beacon for others who are still finding their way out of limitation. You stand untouched by their chaos, a beacon of truth in a world that has long needed authentic leadership. Your presence commands respect, not through force, but through the undeniable power of your authentic being. The same energy that once made them uncomfortable now draws them like moths to flame, desperate to bask in the light they once tried to extinguish. The Obsidian Inner Order is a sanctuary for those who have walked difficult paths and emerged with wisdom others can't see. We understand that some experiences exist outside the boundaries of what most people consider possible or acceptable to discuss. Every week we gather live on Zoom, real people with real faces sharing real stories without judgment. There's space here for the experiences you've carried in silence, the patterns you've noticed that others dismiss, the intuitive knowledge you've gained through your journey. We don't just listen, we understand. When you're struggling to make sense of your experiences, when you feel gaslit by a world that refuses to acknowledge your reality, you can return to our recorded calls and remember that your perception is valid. Join the Obsidian Inner Order, where your reality is honored and your voice is heard. Link in description. Your departure from their world isn't physical relocation, it's dimensional graduation. You're literally shifting into a frequency of experience where their limitations no longer apply, their rules become irrelevant, their opinions lose all power to affect you. Their systems of control can no longer reach the altitude at which you're operating. This transition feels like leaving because you're moving beyond the reach of everything that once constrained your potential. The job that demanded you stay small becomes energetically incompatible with your expanded presence. The relationships that required you to dim your light naturally dissolve as your frequency rises beyond their range. The environments that felt like prison simply can't contain the being you've become. You're not abandoning anyone. You're evolving beyond the need for their permission, approval, or understanding. Your departure is graduation, not rejection. Your transcendence is completion, not escape. Your freedom is achievement, not avoidance. You're moving toward your purpose rather than running from their limitations. Some will try to pull you back into their frequency through guilt, manipulation, or emotional appeals. They'll claim you're changing, becoming different, leaving them behind. They're right. That's exactly what conscious evolution looks like. You are becoming different. You are transcending their limitations. You are moving beyond their capacity to limit your potential. The most loving thing you can do is continue rising to your highest expression. Your elevated example gives them permission to transcend their own limitations if they choose. Your freedom demonstrates what becomes possible when someone stops accepting artificial boundaries as permanent reality. Your success proves that their limitations were always chosen rather than imposed. This isn't the end of connection. It's the beginning of authentic relationship based on truth rather than neediness. Those who choose to rise with you will find deeper connection than ever before. Those who prefer their familiar limitations will naturally find others who share their chosen frequency. Everyone ends up where they belong based on their own decisions about growth. The exodus isn't painful when you understand its necessity. You're not losing anything real, you're gaining everything authentic. The people, places, and patterns you're leaving behind were never truly aligned with your highest good anyway. They were holding you back from the very destiny you came here to fulfill. Those who wounded you are now haunted by their choices. The same individuals who tried to break your spirit are experiencing the weight of their actions reflected back through their own circumstances. They see what you've become and understand what they lost when they chose to diminish rather than celebrate your light. Their regret is palpable, but your focus remains forward. Here you are, crowned and ready, standing at the threshold of the new earth that's been forming around you this entire time. What seemed like distant possibility is now immediate reality. What appeared to be spiritual metaphor is revealed as literal truth. What they claimed was impossible is proving to be inevitable through your own lived experience. This new earth isn't a future destination, it's a present frequency. It's available right now to any consciousness ready to release attachment to limitation and embrace their authentic power. You're not waiting for external permission to live in this reality. Party kanati 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 Both realities coexist, separated by frequency rather than geography. Your choice of which reality to inhabit is determined by your willingness to embody the consciousness that creates it. You've discovered that paradise isn't a place but a state of being, that heaven isn't a reward for good behavior, but a frequency of consciousness available to anyone willing to transcend fear-based thinking, that the kingdom isn't ruled by external authority but governed by inner wisdom aligned with universal love. Looking back now, you can see how every apparent obstacle was actually curriculum. Every person who opposed you was actually training you to trust your own authority. Every limitation you faced was actually developing your power to transcend any boundary. Every moment of darkness was actually strengthening your capacity to carry more light. The restlessness that once tormented you has transformed into purposeful action. The loneliness that once isolated you has become the space for your spiritual family to emerge. The dreams that once seemed impossible have become the blueprint for your current reality. Everything that once felt like punishment is now revealed as preparation for this moment of recognition and empowerment. Your story isn't ending, it's beginning. The chapters you've lived were prologue to the epic that starts now. The chosen one you always knew yourself to be is finally free to express without limitation, create without permission, and lead without apology. The new Earth isn't just your destination. You are its architect, its foundation, its living embodiment. The most remarkable aspect of this arrival is recognizing that you never actually went anywhere. You simply stopped pretending to be less than you are. You ceased accepting limitations as permanent fixtures of reality. You quit seeking permission to express your authentic power. The new Earth was always available. You just needed to become ready to claim it. Your scars have become your strength. Every wound inflicted by those who should have protected you, transformed into wisdom that cannot be shaken. The betrayals that once devastated you now serve as proof of your resilience. You carry the evidence of your battles not as shame but as trophies of your victory over every force that tried to diminish your light. Welcome home to yourself. Welcome home to your purpose. Welcome home to the reality you came here to create. The crown fits perfectly because you were always meant to wear it. The throne awaits because you were always destined to claim it. The new Earth emerges because beings like you were always meant to build it. This is your time, this is your reality, this is your new Earth. And nothing can take it away from you now because you've finally remembered who you really are. The journey of forgetting is over. The era of remembering has begun, and you, chosen one, are leading the way home.